Well, I may cheat 2 minutes unless y'all want to continue. I'll cheat a little bit. All right, we went through the other stuff last week. I'm going to run through the whole overview and make a couple of comments about the knowledge of good and evil. And I didn't really finish one point that I wanted to make last week. Remember, all of this goes to Ephesians 3:8. We don't, and today we're going to zip through Noah and the book of Job. We just recently studied the book of Job, so there's a lot of stuff. You're going to just have to know this stuff. If you don't know it, you're going to have to read it and figure it out. But anyway, Paul says he was given the grace to preach to the Gentiles the unfathomable riches of Christ and to bring to light the mystery that God has hidden. This was before the beginning of the world. God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit knew what was going on. But it was so that the manifold wisdom of God might be made known through the church to the rulers and authorities in the heavenlies. And the biggest thing about the whole thing is understand it ain't all about us. Unfortunately, people think it's always all about them. Everything's always all about them. Well, it isn't even all about humanity. We don't know exactly what all God's got planned, what God is doing. We get glimpses. We get to the point where we say, well, what about me? And that's what this whole thing is. The church is about me. But it's about me in the fact that God is showing the rulers and authorities why I had to have the church. What the church is about. And that's a very important thing. And I want to read, we don't always go this, that's just a general thing, but turn to Ephesians 3. And we've read this, but we're going to skip now because it's a whole thing, and I really don't. I'll do 2 more classes, and I'm going to run out of time. And but it'll be far enough. Y'all will be totally confused. John's got a whole year to straighten it out. We'll start in 14. Paul says, "For this reason I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name, that he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in the inner man." Because that's what's going to live. The Spirit's going to live. The flesh is going to turn to dust. "So that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ which surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled up to all the fullness of God." That's a pretty big statement. That's a pretty big job for us to do, to understand it. But we can't just say, well, I don't understand it, so I'm not going to think about it. We're not given that option. We're told that's what it's going to be. Now, to him who is able, he just told us what to do, to understand the length. Now, to him who is able to do exceeding abundantly beyond all we ask or think, according to the power that works within us. To him, to God, be the glory in what? In the church and in Christ Jesus, to all generations forever and ever. Amen. We got the power to think about it. But the glory is coming to God for the church. Who is going to understand this better than us? We live how long? Anybody? 70, 75, 100? There's a few live 105. Average age, men, 74 years. Women, 78 years. So we might get a little more, we might get a little less. Don't matter. These have been there since before the beginning, watching this whole thing. You understand what I'm saying? But we're not given the option about it. I mean, we are to try to comprehend it. If we're supposed to comprehend something, we got to think about it. Correct? Okay, anyway. So my whole premise is the knowledge of good and evil. We've been through this. And that's all we have from Adam to Noah. That's what I say. We had one law in the garden, and what was it? It wasn't even to me. God never told me not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But he told Adam and Eve, don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So they broke the rule and caused disaster. Then we see Cain and Abel, and they bring their gifts, and the attitude of Cain it just goes. If you turn yourself in, what do we have now? We got Putin over here thinking he's trying to restore the glory to Russia because this is his last chance, because in 10 years they ain't going to have enough young people. I mean, everybody's going to be out there in a walker with a gun or trying to drive a tank. It ain't happening. You know what I'm saying? But the guy, how old do you put Putin? About 70 years old. Okay. I don't know if the Ukrainians are any better than the Russians. I don't know all that stuff. But all I know is everybody, in 70 years, if you haven't got you straightened out, what's the odds of you getting straightened out? So we don't need to live 900 years just to see, okay, got the patience of God with Noah, the patience of God in the days of Noah. Okay, you got all these years to get better. You got all these years to say, you know, I need to change. This is just not a good thing. God's just showing, it don't matter how long I've give you. Once you start down the path of evil, you're not coming back. And isn't that what Paul tells us? And your conscience, don't sear your conscience. Don't sear your conscience. Don't sear your conscience. Because why? You get it seared, who cares? If I want to do it, I do it. It doesn't matter. But anyway, in Genesis 9, we have what I call the first law. Let's turn over to Genesis 9 and do this real quick, and then I'm going to say some things that we still are under the law of the knowledge of good and evil, if you call it a law. We're still subject to it.
That's a great thought, though, Bo, what you were just talking about. I was thinking about 2 Peter 3:9. The Lord's not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but all should come to repentance. And it doesn't matter if he suffers 900 years or if he suffers 70, it still shows the same principle.
Exactly. I mean, God knows. You know, it's like, okay, the way I think of it is there, he shows the rulers and authorities, okay, this is what the knowledge of good and evil is like, and the exposure. And when after 50 years, you're not straightening up. I mean, he sits there and watches. Okay, I'll give him a little more time. I'll give him a little more time. I'll get a little more time. You pretty well know once you got the knowledge of good and evil, if you're not going to say, hey, I probably better not do this, you're going to go and you're going to give into it. And you're going to give into it. And you're going to give into it. And it doesn't matter. God's saying, see, I told you. I mean, after 10 years, I mean, Cain and Abel, after 20 years, they weren't going to straighten up. Cain wasn't going to straighten up. So why should I why should I destroy the world, which is what he had to do? I think there was a reason people lived that long to start with. God's showing his patience, and you're not changing. So anyway, we get to Genesis 9. He makes some comments. Then God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, okay, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. Now, a lot of people still think that's their job today, but I don't know that it was my job, but that was what he told Noah to do. Okay? And the fear of you, and this is something else that's going to happen, the fear of you and the terror of you shall be on every beast of the earth and on every bird of the sky and everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are given. Every moving thing that is alive shall be food for you. I give all to you as I gave the green plant. So, if I ate plants before, he said anything moving you can eat. So, the terror of the animals, they're going to be scared of you. I'm putting something into animals where God's explaining. We're getting details that we didn't. All we got in the Garden of Eden was what? Don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We don't have any other thing said. We go, and even when Cain, to me, when Cain said, God said, listen, sin is crouching at the door. It didn't say you already sinned. It said sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you. Evil wants you. And that's why we're going to get to the book of Job. And I think that's the reason the book of Job was the first book written. But anyway. All right. Only that you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood. So you got to bleed an animal before you eat it. And surely I will require your lifeblood, and from every beast I will require it, and from every man, and from every man's brother I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by his blood shall be shed. By man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he has made man. As for you, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and all that stuff. Then he gives the first covenant, which is, see that rainbow? I'm not gonna flood the earth again. You animals don't have to worry about it. Nobody else has to worry about it. But that's the first time a law that I can put my finger on is given. And it's pretty sad when the basic law is don't kill, don't go around killing people. You would think, what do we consider the worst crime as humans? Murder. Why? That's exactly right. I can steal your car. I got to give him a car back. I can steal your money. There's a lot of things that you try to make restitution for, but there is no way you can repay the person that you violated. There's no way to do it except for you. You took something that can't be replaced. You got to pay the price. Now, why would you have to say that? Because you've given into evil. Your conscience is ruined. It's just a terrible thing. Anyway, but I mentioned that Simeon and Levi and Simeon, whichever one, the two brothers that killed all Shechem's bunch because they did something that ought not to be done. Later on when you read, Jacob says, you've made me to stink. And they say, should our sister be treated as a harlot? There's lots of shoulds, rights, and John brought up one Wednesday night. Is it right? I don't think it's right for us to be out here with all this stuff and people starving. This ain't right. Now, where did it come from? Was there a law in the law of Moses? Because they had the law of Moses that says, now if you're trapped in a city and you get lots of stuff, you take, maybe help the stranger, but wait a minute, I'm a leper. Is this right? We have internal stuff. We got it. We all have it. Some people got about that much of it, or they allow that much to happen, and some people, but it doesn't matter. But it's interesting. What was the problem with Simeon and Levi and their response to the rape of their sister?
They made them think they were going to do one thing, and they turned around after
Yeah, they deceived them, but the punishment did not fit the crime. You don't kill 500 people because they raped your sister. Now, why do you think God gave the law? An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Everybody, oh, that's so cruel. Nah, it wasn't. It's better than, you raped my sister, so I'm going to kill the whole city. I mean, wait a minute. Where's the balance? Where's the God? I mean, that's the whole reason God had to put laws in, is because we saw that with Lamech. Cain was to be avenged sevenfold. Lamech goes crazy. I killed this guy. If he's got it once, I got 77 times. I mean, what's your son, your grandson has it, and somebody insults him and he kills him, and his is 777 times. I mean, where does it end? Is the point. All these people, all these beings have watched all of this stuff. So anyway, we get to Noah, and this is when I say that's the basic law, the simplest law that everybody should have internalized from the knowledge of good and evil was, don't kill your neighbor or you're going to die. It's pretty simple. That's where I come up with the first law, command. Rule. Anyway, Job is considered the first book written. We go over to the book of Job, and it's fascinating. Everybody wonders who wrote the book of Job and all this stuff, and I guess all these people have different ideas and all. I just figure, Job probably had the book of Job written. And I'm not saying he wrote it. I'm saying, what are all these? What does every politician have to do? Seem like any great person, when they get toward the end of their life or the end of their career, what do? They write a memoir, an autobiography. Well, I don't know that God didn't put it into Job's mind after all of this was over with and say, Job probably was thinking, sitting around one day. Now, this is all speculation, you understand. I wasn't there. I don't know. All these scholars do all this stuff, but I have to think things, say, well, where would it have come from? And the person that was there and that would know the most about it would be Job, except for the background. But what is different about the book of Job than any other book?
It gives you insight into what was going on past, not what was on earth, but what was going on in heaven.
Okay, so we have a good view of the background. Satan has been walking around. He's been walking around for a long time. It's never anything good. So it's fascinating to me that this is the first book, and we see in the first chapter of the first book what's really going on with humanity. There is a battle between God and Satan. There is, we use battle terms, but we see the result of Satan getting the knowledge of good and evil. We see the result of Satan not staying where he was supposed to be, meddling in something he had no business meddling in. But anyway, what did Job constantly say, and what did his friends say? And this was common knowledge. It's given as common knowledge. Yeah, Job. Okay, what was Job going by?
He always offered sacrifice.
Okay, he offered sacrifice. Where did all this come from? God didn't tell him to offer sacrifices every time his kids sinned. Yeah, he knew right from wrong, and I don't know where this, I don't know if this is the wisdom of the ages, but was the wisdom right? The wisdom of the ages right in Job?
The old people way back when, they had to worship something. If it wasn't God, they worshipped a rock, or they worshipped an animal or tree, you know.
But Job, in the book of Job, they didn't do that. What did his friends say? And what did Job say?
You do evil, you get punished.
Yeah, everybody knows God's only going, if you're doing evil, God's going to punish you. If you're doing good, God ain't going to do that. God is not going. The problem is, Job, you have sinned. Job's saying, wait a minute now. I've been sitting here going over this in my mind here. I'm sitting here scraping myself in the dust and the ashes, scraping boils off of me. And I've been thinking about this. And you know what? I'm confused. Because I followed everything I thought I was supposed to follow. And his friends say, obviously, you know, there was a widow somewhere you oppressed. There was somebody's donkey you stole. There was something you've cheated somebody somewhere. That's because God would not do that. What does God say in the end of the book of Job?
He did sin against God. God was angry with him for questioning him at one point, but Job was still righteous.
Okay.
Did he say that?
Yeah. But you know, I don't ever ask a question that I expect that answer to. I'm looking for something different. I'm always looking for something different. Was Job's, in your general mind, what do we say? Let's just walk down Steel on Saturday evening, and you see this guy over here, you know, they do dope. This guy's stumbling around, he's drunk. This other guy, you don't know what he's doing. He's just walking around. What do we think in our mind?
You know what's right and what's wrong is the general.
Yeah, we do the same thing. Man, can these people ever get their life straight? Can they get away from this? We look at it. We do the same thing today. Well, and Paul says, evil companions corrupt good morals. I mean, you don't want to. But God's saying, you can't go around and say, everybody that is doing good, I blessed. And everybody that's doing bad is sinned against me. That's what the book of Job's about. There's a lot going on that you don't know about. Job, Eliphaz, all of you guys that are sitting here saying this stuff about me. The book of Job says y'all don't know what's going on. Where were you when I did all these things? All of that happened way before the earth was even created. So the general assumption that mankind developed, we don't know what was going on. Job didn't know what was going on. He knew the general principles. Now let me say, why do you think Job, because Satan accused God, said, well, he blessed everything he did. Now, let's say you're a business person. How many times do you want to trade with the guy? Every time you're trading all your wool, you get over there and, man, now I know I had 100 pounds, but it only shows 95. Well, I knew that I thought I was supposed to get a half a cow or a half a sheep when I went to the market, and somehow or another I'm winding up short. Now, why do you think Job was blessed? Did it have to be because he did? No. People want to deal with people who are righteous, who are right. Why?
Because they don't want to be cheated.
Yeah, you don't. Right. Job had 3,000 camels, all 7,000 sheep, all of this great, 500 yoke oxen. Whenever he took the wheat to the market and he sold it, he sold the right amount. Whenever he transported your goods, you say, well, man, I know my trucking firm had all your gold and your frankincense and all that stuff going over there, but, some of them bandits got us, all I can say is you just out of luck. Now, or do you say, hey, wait a minute, that we had this deal, and this is the way it is, and I'm going to make it good, or we'll work out something ahead of time. If we get robbed, what do you want to do? Everybody knows these different things. They didn't have insurance. Well, let's see this insurance policy, all this stuff developed over time. The most fascinating thing to me about the book of Job is a general principle, and they were probably right. God's going to bless you if you do good. I mean, David says, don't let me get too rich where I forget you. Don't let me be too poor, beg bread and, people defame you. But there might be a general principle, but why is it that way? We're attributing it to God instead of just good is good. We know people that are evil that are good.
It says, he lets the rain fall on the just and the
So to me, the whole book of Job, we sit here and read it and we stress and we say, oh, patience, and I wouldn't want that to happen to me, and we internalize it, which is all good, well and good. And it's all lessons, who knows? You can't understand the manifold wisdom of God no matter how much you look about it. But the fascinating thing to me about the book of Job is God, even, he gets on to Job, even though Job, he says in the end, Job spoke to me what's right, because God doesn't always. Job says, well, I've seen righteous, I've seen righteous. Here's this wicked guy and his kids go down and he got fat on his thighs. I guess that was a wonderful thing back in them days. I don't know. Here we all try to lose weight. Now all trying to gain weight. I've never seen anything like it. But all of these things, wait a minute now, what about this evil guy over here? Job was saying that, well, that's not right. That's not right. God will never do anything wrong. God will never let. What we don't know is there's something going on. And God says, you don't know the rules. The rules were way back here before we ever started. What's going on is something way back here. And you don't really know what's going on, especially Job and those people. They didn't have. If Job was the first book, they weren't reading the book of Moses. They weren't reading the law. They didn't have Paul and Peter, and they didn't have all that stuff. Luke, Matthew, none of that. They didn't know any of that. But they were general principles of how do I, if I treat people good and I do right, that makes a better society. They figured a lot of this stuff out. But I don't know how long it took. They didn't even get out of the ark good. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that you brought out that I was thinking about is that we ask the question, why would something bad happen to somebody who's doing good? But we're already at a handicap, because how do we know it's bad? I remember when I used to go to the airport with my dad, and he would take gas out of the bottom of the wing, and I'd say, well, that can't be good. We need gas to fly. Yeah. But little did I know there was water in it.
Yeah.
He was trying to
get out.
How do we know what God is doing?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We get the first picture in Job, and we see Satan is trying to destroy us. God is trying to save us.
Well, he says the sons of God, God and the sons of God, and Satan also.
Yeah.
Separate, but they're all right there together. So there's something going on that we can't comprehend and can't say.
Exactly. But the book of Job, to me, is saying, well, you can say everything good happens is because of God, and you can say everything's bad happened because you sinned against Him, and you're both wrong. That's what God says. That's what the book of Job is about. There's something going on that you can't see. What did What did Abel have? We read about. No, Abel in Hebrews 11. Let me give you that. By what? By faith. What did Noah do? By what? By faith. Job, why was he doing what he was doing? Why did he offer all those sacrifices? His faith, exactly. His faith that God would do what was right. He placed it in there. Now we come to Abraham, because I'm going to kind of jump in between just so I have more time on the last class to do something else. But I want you to see here, I'm saying all we have is the knowledge of good and evil. Noah, you get the first law, don't kill each other. By the time Job comes around, people have started saying, hey, this is it. And so they've developed the perfect law. If you're good and you do righteously, nothing bad happens. If you do it, so here the first book, we done got it all fouled up. I mean, but they have figured out we can get the more righteous you are, the better it is. It's better. I mean, why do we come up with laws? Why do we come up with laws? Job sat at the gate, and when he spoke, everybody shut up because he was, saying this is the right way to do things. Now, what was the law? I don't know. Was the law always between an individual? And these are general principles, and this person, there must have been some kind of law with them, because they would rebuke and pass judgment. But where was the judgment? Where were the laws? Where was all that stuff happening? Where did they conduct court back then? In the gate, where everybody came. The central, we call it the town hall. They come to the town hall and say, well, this person did this person did that. And so you would hope, well, don't take a bribe, then God comes on. But anyway, Abraham, what does Abraham, let's go to chapter 12 of Genesis. Then because this is where things start happening. What I'm saying is the rulers and authorities see this disaster that's happened, and then God says, in my mind, all right, this is how we're going to fix it. And look how long it takes them all the way till we get to here before he gets them to understand what all this is about. You see what I'm saying? Okay, Genesis 12, a fascinating thing happens. Now the Lord said to Abraham, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land I will show you. I'll make you a great nation. I'll bless you, make your name great, so you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, curse the one who curses you, I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So Abram went forth as the Lord spoke to him. The Lord comes and speaks to you and says, Alfred, move to Russia. I'll take care of you.
And you're 75.
And you're 75 years old. Now, wait a minute. Who'd you say you were again? These people in the Middle East, they're big into dreams and visions, and I guess God did. He spoke to them by that way plenty of times. But it's fascinating. God picks a man out from the world and says, okay, this is how all this stuff, this is how I'm going to fix everything. And he picks Abraham. Abraham was 75, okay? God says, get up and go. Okay. So he goes, and we get into chapter 15. After these things, the word of verse 1, after these things, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision, saying, do not fear, Abram. This is after. We're going to stick with Abraham. Melchizedek had already, this is after Lot and all that stuff. You'll have to read it for yourself. But anyway, Melchizedek blesses him, but he's a priest of the God Most High, which, how that worked, I don't know. But I'm telling you, something was moving in the world. It's different. Do not fear, Abraham. I'm a shield to you. Your reward shall be great. And Abram said, oh, Lord, what will you give me? I don't have a kid. The heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. Since thou hast given me no offspring, one born in my house is my heir. The Lord said, nope, you're going to have your own. He said, count the stars of heaven if you can believe so. Verse 6, then he believed in the Lord, and it reckoned to him as righteousness. Okay, this goes on. Abraham, this started when he was how old? When he first told him? And how old was he when he said he was going to have a child? No, I don't think it's there. But anyway, he tells him he's going to have one. Isaac has promised again, but I want to get to circumcision. But anyway, 75. Anyway, how old was he when he was born? Let's just make it that way. 100 years. If somebody promises you something and it's 25 years before it happens, what is your tendency? I mean, we know that. Well, that's what. And so why is it such a big thing for Hagar and Sarah to work up something? Well, God said, well, this is the way we're going to do it. 25 years, I'm getting old. I'm too old. I'm too old. Now, anybody in their right mind would say, what? I'm too old. Who wants to have a kid at 90 years old? Yeah.
If he's going to gauge on something, because we do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, Abraham has lots of children. Sarah's the one that's saying that. I mean, after Sarah dies, he marries Keturah and has like 7 kids or 7 sons or something. But anyway, God starts making these things. Now, what do we call Abraham the father of? Faith. Why do you think faith is so important in the Bible?
If you didn't have faith in it, you couldn't believe in it.
But okay, let's go back to the definition of faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things. Well, faith is, anyway. You can't see it. It's there. But you're putting your faith in something you can't see or you can't taste or you can't touch. You're putting your faith in this. But it's not without evidence. Why is faith so important? Faith. Everybody keeps saying faith. And they like to say faith only, but it ain't faith only. Because you got obedience that you got to do. You can say, I have faith. The devils, they believe, they tremble. I just wonder about this whole thing that caused the beginning. Why would they want to know the knowledge of good and evil? Why? And it's interesting to me that it's faith. It's like you see God up here. Satan saw God. Satan lived with God. If God told him, no, you can't know this, that's different. It would be destructive. The knowledge of good and evil would be a terrible thing to know because you couldn't resist it. Why didn't Satan believe God? Can't you have faith, what I'm telling you? I mean, people do this all. And God shows the example of Abraham. He says, okay, here's Abraham. He says, I'll tell this guy to leave his country. I'll tell this guy, I'll make a great nation out of you. You can't even, if you can count the stars or the dust, you will. Okay, you know, they're watching all of this. As we're reading this, you put yourself back. Of course, we already know the end of the story. We done read it. But you got to go back before the story and pretend like you're Abraham. And think, man, I'm living in a tent and I'm looking at out in the desert. It's like when you go to the hills hunting and there's no lights around, you can see more stars. You think, great day, I never knew there was that many stars. And he's looking up there, and I'm this old. But these beings saw Abraham believe God, and it was reckoned unto him as righteousness. Well, if God said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Then you read the next, and what happens? God institutes circumcision. Now, I don't know about y'all, but it'd take a lot of faith for, I'm the first one. Now, wait a minute. Abraham, I like you and everything, but
Well, it's interesting that is when it's called the father of all those who believe.
The father of those who believe. I just see how all of this, and we'll see what the church is eventually. And I've got 25 seconds. But anyway, we'll see. That's what I want you to keep putting in your mind. All of this whole thing, everything about that we see, everything since the beginning, wasn't about us. It was about the church. But why did God have this church for this plan? Why did he have to have the church to demonstrate his wisdom to these rulers and authorities? And what do we learn about the entire thing? What makes us so special?
Does that begin after the fall of Satan?
What? Which?
That chart.
No.
Demonstrating after?
No. When he puts Satan, in my opinion, Satan leaves his proper domain when he comes down and says, Eve, what did God tell you that? No, that ain't true. Satan was up here with the rest of these people. God says you can't have it. You can't have it. I don't know when the knowledge of good and evil. I don't know why. Why? Because I've always had the problem of, why would God want to do this to me? And God didn't want to do this to me. Satan wanted to be God. Satan would not stay. He was not satisfied where he was.
And that's the problem we still have.
That's the problem we still have. That's what it's all about. But in the end, what I want to see is how magnificent the church is, and we can't go around playing with the church. We can't go around playing with church. We can't just go around and make it, I'm going to start my own church of the steel cotton farmers. I mean, what? Yeah, it wasn't in my mind before the foundation of the world how to redeem the entire, however big heaven is, and all the people up there, and where all they live. You see the chariots of fire. You see the horses. Well, I'm sure God just doesn't have them wandering around up there. I'm sure they got a place. There is something beyond, and that's what it's all about. Anyway, I'm taking up too much time. I'm going to mess you up. Worse than I already have.